It was 9 a.m. on a chilly Tuesday morning when Jacob Simmons wheeled himself into the lobby of Concord Technologies. He had been with the company for 5 years, and his workstation, set up to accommodate his cerebral palsy, had become a second home. The ergonomic chair, voice-activated software, and adjustable desk were part of the reason he had been able to thrive in his role as a senior software developer. Today, however, things felt different. It was his 34th birthday. He smiled quietly to himself, remembering how his mother, Margaret, had made his favorite chocolate cupcakes the night before. There was a warmth in his chest at the thought. She was always there for him, supporting him through the toughest days, even though her heart condition was getting worse. But there was no time to dwell on that now. His team had a tight deadline to meet, and he couldn't afford to let personal matters interfere. "Morning, Jacob. Happy birthday," his colleague Sarah called out from across the cubicles, her bright smile matching her cheerful voice. "Thanks, Sarah," Jacob replied, his fingers brushing the edge of his keyboard as he adjusted his chair. He felt the familiar buzz of his chair's motor beneath him, and soon he was back in his zone. The adjustable desk moved into position as he powered on his computer, the screen coming to life in front of him. The company's proprietary software loaded in an instant, and Jacob felt the comfort of the routine wash over him. Sarah rolled her chair over, carrying a small gift bag. "I hope you like it," she said. Inside was a coffee mug with the words "World's Best Coder" printed on it. Jacob grinned. "This is perfect, Sarah." "Thank," he said, placing the mug carefully on his desk. For the next hour, Jacob worked, his fingers dancing over the keyboard. But something felt off. He noticed Maya, the team's lead graphic designer, leave her cubicle and head toward HR. Eduardo, who had lost his leg in a car accident, followed soon after. Then Sabrina, who had multiple sclerosis, was called in as well. Jacob's stomach tightened. It was strange. None of them returned. At 10:30 a.m., his phone rang. The voice on the other end was calm but insistent. "Mr. Simmons, please come to the HR office." Jacob's heart sank. He exchanged a glance with Sarah, whose eyes widened with concern. "It's probably nothing," he said, trying to reassure both of them, though his own mind raced. The hallway to HR seemed longer than usual. His wheelchair's wheels squeaked against the polished floor as he tried to steady his breath. When he entered the room, he noticed Ms. Patel, the HR manager, avoiding eye contact. But the figure sitting in the corner of the room was unmistakable. Daniel Carson, the CEO of Concord Technologies, was glaring at him with cold eyes. Jacob's stomach twisted. "Mr. Simmons," Ms. Patel began, her voice shaky but professional. "I'm afraid we have to let you go. The company is downsizing." Jacob blinked. "Downsizing? But we just had a record quarter, and my team is already short-staffed." Daniel Carson stood up, adjusting his expensive suit with a practiced ease. "The decision has been made. Your position is being eliminated effective immediately." Jacob felt like he'd been punched. "But my project isn't finished. I'm the lead developer for the accessibility features." "Those features have been deprioritized," Carson cut in, his voice indifferent. "We're focusing on core functionalities that appeal to the majority of our users." Jacob's hands trembled as he processed the words. Those features weren't just important to the company's growth. They were going to help thousands of people with disabilities use their product more effectively. And now all of it was being discarded. "Not enough to justify the development costs," Carson added flippantly, a dismissive wave of his hand punctuating the statement. Ms. Patel slid a folder across the desk. "This contains information about your severance package and final paycheck. Security will assist you in collecting your belongings." "Security?" Jacob's voice caught in his throat. He felt humiliated, but he nodded and took the folder. As he prepared to leave, he turned to Carson one last time. "What about my workstation?" Jacob asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Carson didn't even glance at him. "It will be disassembled today." Jacob wheeled himself back to his desk in a daze, a security guard following closely behind. Sarah hurried over to him, her face pale. "What happened?" she whispered. "I've been fired," Jacob said quietly. "Downsizing." That's not right, Jacob," Sarah said, her voice rising in anger. "There's something going on here. All of us, Maya, Eduardo, Sabrina, they all got called in today. You think it's a coincidence?" The guard cleared his throat. "Sir, you need to collect your personal items, please." With trembling hands, Jacob packed up his coffee mug, a few photos, and other small belongings into a box. He felt numb as he looked around at the desk he had worked at for so long, the workstation that had been tailored to help him succeed. The guard followed him out of the office, offering no help as Jacob struggled to load his box into his car. As Jacob drove away from Concord Technologies, the reality of his situation hit him. His mother's medical bills were mounting. His insurance and steady income had been the only things keeping them afloat. How would he make ends meet now? Then his phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. "I got it all on video. What he said about you and the others. This isn't over." Jacob stared at the message, tears welling up in his eyes. He didn't want to fight. He just wanted his job back. He wanted to feel valued for the work he had done, not cast aside like some expendable resource. He barely noticed the red light as his phone buzzed again. It was a text from Sarah. "Elon Musk has just commented on your story. It's going viral. People are talking about it. We're going to make this right." Jacob's heart skipped a beat. Elon Musk, the billionaire entrepreneur? He hadn't expected this, and yet something deep inside him began to hope. Jacob sat at the kitchen table in his small apartment, his phone still buzzing with messages. He couldn't believe the events of the day. Fired, on his birthday no less. Margaret, his mother, had just returned from her doctor's appointment, where she'd learned that her heart condition was worsening. She had always been his rock, never showing weakness, but Jacob knew the toll it was taking on her. She had sacrificed so much for him. How could he tell her that he had lost his job? "Jacob," Margaret called from the living room. "Is everything okay, sweetheart? You look distant." He took a deep breath and forced a smile as he walked into the living room. His mother, frail but full of warmth, looked up at him with concern. She had always been the one to encourage him, telling him to never give up, even when the world seemed against him. But now he felt like he had no answers, no solution. It's been a tough day, Mom," Jacob said quietly. He didn't want to burden her further. Margaret reached out and placed her hand over his. "I know, honey, but you're smart. You've always been smart. You'll figure something out." Jacob didn't want to tell her the truth yet. How could he explain that the job he had worked so hard for, the job that provided for both of them, was now gone? He thought about the mounting medical bills and the uncertainty of what was to come. His phone buzzed again. It was a message from Sarah. "Jacob, you need to see this. Elon Musk has commented. It's going viral. You're going to hear from him." Jacob frowned. Elon Musk. The name felt like something out of a dream. What would Elon Musk want with him? He glanced at his mother, who was still holding his hand, and excused himself to check his phone. The message was a simple tweet from Elon Musk's official Twitter account, which read, "Firing talented people with disabilities isn't just wrong. It's poor business. The world needs more innovators like Jacob Simmons." Justice for Jacob. Jacob stared at the screen, barely able to process what he was reading. The tweet was gaining traction fast, the number of retweets and likes climbing by the second. There was no doubt about it. Elon Musk had just publicly backed him. His heart raced. His phone rang again, but this time it was a call from an unknown number. He hesitated before answering. "Hello? Mr. Simmons?" The voice on the other end was calm but professional. "This is Laura Chen, assistant to Elon Musk. Mr. Musk has seen the video, and he would like to speak with you regarding the situation at Concord Technologies." Jacob's mind raced. "Wait, what? He wants to speak with me?" "Yes," Laura replied. "He's on his way to a meeting with Concord's board. But before he does, he'd like to hear your side of the story. Can we arrange a video call for you in the next hour?" Jacob could barely breathe. Yes, of course." Laura gave him the details for the video call, and as the connection ended, Jacob sat back in his chair, stunned. Elon Musk, the tech mogul, the billionaire, wanted to speak with him. This was surreal. How was this even happening? As he prepared for the call, his phone buzzed again. Sarah had sent him another message. "I think something big is happening. People are rallying around you, Jacob. This isn't just about your job anymore. It's about the whole system." Jacob typed a quick reply. "Thanks for being here for me, Sarah. I don't know what to say. I'm not sure what any of this means. But as he stared at the phone, he realized that maybe it wasn't just about the job. Maybe this was bigger. Maybe this was the moment he could make a real difference for others like him. Exactly 45 minutes later, Jacob received the video call request. He accepted the call with shaking hands, and a moment later, Elon Musk appeared on the screen. Jacob was caught off guard by how casual Elon looked. He was sitting in the back of what appeared to be a black SUV, wearing a simple black t-shirt. The man who had transformed the electric car industry, who had colonized space, was now speaking directly to him. "Mr. Simmons," Elon said, his voice calm but firm, "thanks for taking the time to speak with me. I watched the video, and I have to say, what happened to you and your colleagues at Concord is unacceptable. I know this may sound crazy, but I want to help." Jacob blinked, his throat dry. I don't understand. Why me? Why now?" Elon smiled slightly, leaning back in his seat. "I've seen a lot of things in my time, Jacob. I've made a lot of mistakes, but I've also learned to recognize talent. What Concord did to you isn't just morally wrong, it's bad business. You and the others, they were a part of something innovative, something that could change the game. And I know how much value was lost when they let you go." Jacob wasn't sure if he should believe this was real. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. I have no job, no way to support my mom's treatment. My whole future feels uncertain." "I understand," Elon said, nodding seriously, "but you don't need to figure it all out alone. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm starting something new. I've been thinking about this for a while, building a company that focuses on accessible technology. Not just making products that are accessible for people with disabilities, but doing it in a way that integrates those challenges from the ground up. I'd like you to lead this effort." Jacob's heart skipped a beat. "Lead it? But I've never run a company. I don't know where to start." "You don't need to know it all right now," Elon said. "You've got the vision, Jacob, and that's what I need. I can provide the resources, the team, and the support. I want you to bring in the other people who were affected by Concord's decision. Together, we'll create something that will not only change the way technology is developed, but also change the industry." Jacob was still processing everything. His mother, the bills, his own career. Could he really take this leap? But what about Concord? What about getting my job back? Elon paused for a moment, then spoke with quiet conviction. "You don't need to go back to a company that didn't see your value. What I'm offering is a chance to build something better, something that not only addresses the needs of people like you, but embraces it as a competitive advantage. We'll make sure your team is the future of innovation." The words felt surreal, like they were coming from a dream, but something inside Jacob told him that this was the opportunity he had been waiting for. Jacob sat back in his chair, staring at the screen, Elon Musk's face still lingering in his mind. His heart was racing. A few minutes ago, he had been just another employee, dismissed without a second thought by a company that had used him and cast him aside. Now he was being offered a chance to not only change his life, but to help change the world. "I don't know what to say," Jacob finally managed, his voice barely a whisper. "This is overwhelming." "I get it," Elon replied with a slight smile, his gaze steady and unwavering. "But you've got something special, Jacob. You've worked in accessibility for years. You've built systems that help people who others overlook. That's the kind of innovation that's going to change industries." Jacob couldn't help but feel a sense of hope rising within him. Could this really be happening? Could he really be the one to make a difference, to lead a company that would champion inclusivity? "I've seen what you've done, Jacob," Elon continued, leaning forward. "What you and your team at Concord created, those accessibility features, were going to change things. But Concord didn't see it. I see it, and I want you to lead the way." Jacob glanced down at his phone, the flood of messages from friends and supporters still coming in. Zoe, the colleague who had posted the video, had been there every step of the way. Her support had meant more than words could express. But now there was an even bigger question at hand. Should he take this leap of faith? His mother's voice echoed in his head. "You're smart. You'll figure it out." He glanced back at the screen. "What exactly do you want me to do?" Elon leaned back, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "I want to build a company, Access Tech, We're going to focus on making technology accessible to everyone, not as an afterthought, but as the core of everything we do. I want you to be the head of that project. Bring the team back together. Sabrina, Eduardo, Maya, and Zoe. Get them on board. I want you all to work with me to create the most inclusive, innovative technology this world has ever seen. Jacob's mind raced. Was this real? Could he really lead a team of talented people, build something from the ground up, and show the world that inclusivity wasn't a burden? It was the future? Elon's voice broke through his thoughts. I don't expect you to have all the answers right away, Jacob, but you're the person I want at the helm. I'm going to give you full creative control. You'll have all the resources you need. And most importantly, I'm going to make sure you're surrounded by people who believe in what you're doing. Jacob looked at the screen, feeling a wave of determination surge through him. This was it. This was the chance he had been waiting for. Okay, Jacob said, his voice strong now, a new fire igniting inside him. I'm in, but I need my team, my friends to be a part of this. We're stronger together. Elon smiled. That's what I like to hear. I'll set up everything. Let's make this happen. After the call ended, Jacob sat in stunned silence for a moment. His fingers trembled slightly as he set his phone down. He couldn't believe it. Just hours ago, he had been facing an uncertain future. Now he had a chance to build something that would not only provide for his family, but could change the way technology worked for millions of people. The phone buzzed in his hand again. It was Sarah. I saw the call. Jacob, you did it. Elon Musk just called you. This is insane. You have to talk to the others. Maya, Sabrina, Eduardo. They'll be just as shocked as I am. This is going to be huge. Jacob's heart skipped. He quickly typed a response. I'm in. I've got a plan. I'm going to bring us all together. This is our chance to make real change. He hit send and took a deep breath. It was time to make some calls. The first person he called was Sabrina. He had worked with her for years at Concord, and she was one of the most talented designers he knew. Her multiple sclerosis had never slowed her down, and her work in accessibility had been invaluable to their team. Sabrina, Jacob's voice was steady but filled with excitement. Jacob, she replied, sounding surprised. What's going on? You okay? I'm more than okay, Jacob said, unable to contain the excitement in his voice. I've got a huge opportunity. Elon Musk just offered me a chance to lead a new company focused on accessibility. He wants us to build something together. The whole team, you, Eduardo, Maya, Zoe, all of us. It's going to be huge. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Sabrina's voice, when it came, was filled with disbelief. Wait, what? Elon Musk? Are you serious? Yeah, Jacob replied, a grin spreading across his face. He saw the value in what we were doing. We're going to build something bigger than anything we ever could have imagined. Are you in? There was another pause, and then Sabrina's voice, full of excitement and a bit of disbelief, answered, Of course I'm in. Let's do this. Next, Jacob called Maya, the team's graphic designer, who was deaf. She had always been one of the most creative minds he had ever worked with. The thought of including her in this new venture filled him with hope. Maya, it's Jacob. I've got something big to tell you, he said when she picked up. Jacob! Maya's voice was sharp and curious. What's going on? I've just been offered the chance to lead a new company, Jacob said. It's all about accessibility. Elon Musk saw our work and wants us to bring it to life on a much larger scale. He's asked me to lead it, and I want you to be a part of it. All of us, Eduardo, Sabrina, Zoe, we're going to change the way the world sees technology. There was a pause before Maya responded with a wide grin in her voice. I'm in. Let's do it. Jacob hung up with Maya, his heart pounding. This was happening. He wasn't just getting a second chance. He was getting a chance to change everything. Finally, Jacob reached out to Eduardo. After his accident, Eduardo had faced a lot of challenges, but his engineering mind was brilliant. Eduardo's perspective on mobility had always shaped their team's work in ways Jacob could never have predicted. Eduardo, Jacob said, his voice brimming with excitement, I have an offer I don't think you can refuse. I'm listening, Eduardo said with a chuckle. Elon Musk wants us to build something together. It's a company focused on accessible technology, He's given me the chance to lead it, and I want you on the team. You, me, Sabrina, Maya, Zoe. We're going to make a real impact." "Sounds incredible," Eduardo said. "I'm in. Let's make this happen." Jacob took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the next steps settling on his shoulders. He was leading a team, and together they were going to make something that would not only change their lives but impact millions of others. But there was no going back now. With the support of his team and the backing of Elon Musk, Jacob was ready to take the next step into a future where accessibility wasn't an afterthought, but the heart of innovation. The following days were a whirlwind for Jacob and his newly reunited team. The sudden transition from being fired to becoming part of a groundbreaking project left him feeling both excited and overwhelmed. The weight of leading this new initiative was heavy on his shoulders, but with every call he made, every person he spoke to, Jacob could feel the spark of something big igniting. Elon Musk was true to his word. Within days, everything was in motion. The team that had been scattered and dismissed by Concord Technologies was now coming together, bound by a shared purpose and a belief in the work they had been doing. The momentum was unstoppable, and Jacob couldn't help but feel a sense of destiny pulling him forward. Jacob was at home, sitting at his small kitchen table, his laptop open in front of him. He was drafting a proposal for the new company, Access Tech. He had never done anything like this before, but Elon's faith in him kept him going. He was determined to get everything right, to show the world that this wasn't just about a job. It was about changing the landscape of technology. He clicked on a message from Sarah. "The team is ready. We're all in. Let's do this." Jacob smiled. Sarah had been his rock through this entire process. She had stood by him when things were at their darkest, and now she was standing by his side as they all prepared to build something new. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Jacob wheeled himself to the door, opening it to find Zoe standing there with a smile. "Hey," Zoe said, holding a small bag. "I brought you lunch. You need to eat, boss." Jacob chuckled. "Thanks, Zoe. I'm so focused on this right now, I forgot to eat." They sat down together, eating lunch as they talked. Zoe had become more than just a colleague to Jacob. She was a friend, someone who understood the challenges they faced as people with disabilities, someone who believed in making the world a better place for everyone. "I can't believe this is happening," Zoe said, looking at Jacob. "Elon Musk, Access Tech. We're about to change everything." Jacob nodded, his mind swirling with ideas. "I know. It feels like everything I've been working toward is finally coming together. But we've got to get this right. This can't just be another tech company. It has to be something that changes how the industry thinks about accessibility. We're going to lead the charge." That evening, Jacob called his team together for their first official meeting. The video conference call connected quickly, and soon Maya, Eduardo, and Sabrina were all on the screen, smiling and excited to be a part of this new venture. "We're all in this together," Jacob began, his voice steady as he looked at the faces of his team. "I've spoken with Elon, and he's fully behind us. We've got the resources we need. But the real question is, what are we going to build? What are we going to offer that no one else is? This is our chance to define the future." Maya, who had been quietly watching, spoke up. "I think we should focus on the user experience first. We've seen how frustrating it is for people with disabilities to interact with technology that isn't made for them. I'm talking about simple things, like voice commands that don't work properly or apps that are impossible to navigate. We can fix that." Sabrina nodded in agreement. "Exactly. I've worked with so many people who can't even use basic technology because it wasn't designed with their needs in mind. If we build something that's truly inclusive, something that works for everyone, we'll have a product people can't live without." Eduardo added, "We need to make sure that accessibility is built in from the start. No more patchwork solutions. Everything we design, every product we release, should be based on the principles of inclusivity and accessibility. We'll be setting a new standard for the industry." Jacob smiled, feeling a sense of pride swell in his chest. "I love this. We're not just designing technology, we're designing a world where everyone can participate. We'll build the best technology that's ever been made, and it won't be because it's for people with disabilities, but because it's for everyone, and it'll work for everyone." The next few weeks passed by in a blur of planning, research, and design. Elon's team provided the financial backing and resources, but Jacob and his group were the ones shaping the vision. They began designing products that were as inclusive as they were innovative. The first major project they focused on was an app called Navi Guide, an accessibility tool that would help users with mobility impairments navigate public spaces. It would provide crowdsourced information about building accessibility, ramps, elevators, accessible restrooms, and would be available for everyone to use, regardless of their ability. Maya and Sabrina worked tirelessly on the design, ensuring that the app's interface was intuitive, user-friendly, and customizable for people with various disabilities. Eduardo focused on the back-end infrastructure, ensuring that the app could handle the volume of data and operate smoothly across multiple platforms. Jacob's role was to oversee the entire project, ensuring that accessibility remained at the core of everything they built. But as the days passed, they also began to encounter new challenges. There were moments of doubt, moments when it felt like the weight of the task was too great. Jacob found himself questioning whether they could truly pull this off, whether they could change the way the world thought about accessibility and technology. It was in those moments that Elon Musk's words echoed in his mind. "I'm giving you full control. The world is waiting for what you'll create." One afternoon, Jacob received a call from Elon himself. It was a surprise, but Jacob was ready for it. "Hey, Jacob," Elon's voice sounded upbeat. "How's everything going?" Jacob took a deep breath. "It's going well. We're working hard on Navi Guide, and we're really pushing the boundaries of what's possible. But it's tough. There's a lot riding on this." "I know the pressure is immense," Elon replied, "but you've got this. You and your team are doing something that no one else is doing. You're not just making technology, you're making the world a better place. Keep pushing forward." Jacob smiled. "Thanks, Elon. That means a lot." "I believe in you, Jacob," Elon said before hanging up. "And I'm here if you need anything. Don't hesitate to reach out." As the call ended, Jacob felt a renewed sense of purpose. He wasn't alone in this. Elon Musk's belief in him, his team's passion, and the growing support from the community kept him going. There was no turning back now. He had made a commitment to his team, to Elon, to himself, and it was time to fulfill it. The next morning, Jacob woke up with a sense of clarity he hadn't felt in days. It was time to meet with the team again. They had work to do, and they were about to change the world. The days following Jacob's conversation with Elon Musk were a blur of excitement and pressure. The team was on track with their designs, working tirelessly to bring Navi Guide to life. But the weight of their ambition was starting to feel heavier with every passing day. Jacob found himself staying late at the office, staring at the code on his screen or reviewing the design mock-ups from Maya and Sabrina. His mind was constantly racing, making sure that every detail aligned with their vision of an inclusive, accessible world. The project was taking shape, but as the launch date loomed closer, Jacob couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. It was late one evening when Jacob received another call from Elon. He answered immediately, knowing that the tech mogul had his hands in many projects at once. "Jacob, how's it going?" Elon's voice came through with its usual confidence. "Everything on track for the Navi Guide launch?" "We're getting there, but it's a lot to pull together in such a short time," Jacob admitted, rubbing his eyes. "The team's pushing hard, but we're not just building a product. We're changing the industry. It's a bit overwhelming." Elon's tone softened. "I get it, and you're doing something truly groundbreaking. But remember, you're not alone in this. The whole world is watching, and they're rooting for you. The way I see it, what you're doing is bigger than just the product. It's about setting a new standard for what accessibility can be. Don't let the pressure get to you." Jacob took a deep breath. "I won't, Elon. I just want to make sure we're creating something that really works for people. Something that lasts." Elon's voice grew more determined. "You will. Trust your instincts, Jacob. You and your team have something special. Keep pushing forward, and you'll see just how much of a difference you're making." Jacob ended the call feeling a bit lighter, but the reality of the project's demands remained. He stood up and walked over to the whiteboard in the corner of the room, where he and his team had mapped out their goals. The Navi Guide was just the first step. The vision for Access Tech was much larger, a company that would transform the way technology was designed, by people who understood the needs of users with disabilities firsthand. Jacob smiled as he looked at the team's ideas, feeling proud of what they had accomplished so far. There were days when he wondered if they could truly change the tech industry, but moments like this reminded him why they were doing this in the first place. They were on the edge of something revolutionary. The next morning, Jacob gathered the team for another check-in. Everyone was present, their faces showing the fatigue of long hours, but also the excitement of what was ahead. Sabrina was sharing updates about the app's design, Eduardo was diving into the app's technical architecture, and Maya was refining the visual elements. "We're almost there," Jacob began, his voice steady but filled with the weight of their work. "We've got less than 2 weeks until launch. I know we're all feeling the pressure, but we've got to make sure this is perfect. Navi Guide is our chance to set the bar. If we get this right, it won't just be the start of our company. It'll be a game changer for accessibility and technology." There was a murmur of agreement around the table. Jacob could feel the energy in the room shift as his team rallied together. They had worked through challenges before, but now it was real. This was their moment. "I know we've had some late nights," Jacob continued, looking at each of them, "but this is worth it. We've got something amazing here. Let's finish strong. We've got Elon's backing, we've got our team, and we've got the world waiting to see what we can do." Zoe, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. "You're right, Jacob. We've already changed so much. This is just the beginning. Let's do it." There was a collective nod from everyone. Jacob felt a surge of pride for his team. They weren't just building a product, they were creating something that would change lives. The days flew by. The pressure mounted, but Jacob found strength in the team's unwavering determination. As they continued to work on the final touches for Navi Guide, the feedback started coming in from their test users. People with varying disabilities who had volunteered to use the app before its official launch. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, with many users expressing how easy it was to navigate and how much more confident they felt about moving through public spaces. For the first time, Jacob felt a sense of relief. They were doing it. They were truly making a difference. As the launch date neared, Elon Musk called Jacob again. "How's everything looking?" Elon asked. "I've been following the updates, and I have to say I'm impressed. The buzz around Navi Guide is already building." "We're close," Jacob replied, "but it's going to be a tight race to the finish line." "Good," Elon said, "because the world is waiting, and I want you and your team to know this is just the beginning. You're setting the foundation for something that can change everything. You're leading the charge, and that's more important than anything else." Jacob smiled, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. Elon's belief in them wasn't just motivating, it was proof that they were on the right path. The day before the official launch, Jacob sat in his office, looking at the finished app on his screen. The features were polished, the interface was sleek, and the accessibility aspects, voice recognition, customization, and the crowdsourced data were all working seamlessly. He couldn't help but think back to his first day at Concord Technologies. Back then, he had been just another employee, working hard to make a difference. Now he was leading a company that was changing the world's approach to technology. It felt surreal. Margaret, his mother, walked into the room and paused at the door, her eyes warm with pride. "I'm so proud of you, Jacob," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "You've worked so hard for this. I knew you had it in you." Jacob smiled at her, feeling a swell of gratitude. "I couldn't have done this without you, Mom. You've always been my inspiration." She gave him a soft smile and walked over to kiss the top of his head. "I know you're going to make this work, honey. You've always found a way." The next morning, Access Tech officially launched Navi Guide. The app went live, and almost instantly, the feedback poured in. The media caught on, and the tech world began buzzing. Social media was flooded with testimonials from users praising the app's accessibility and how it made navigating public spaces easier and safer for people with disabilities. Jacob stood back, watching as the momentum grew. It was happening. They had launched something that people needed, something that was changing lives. But this was only the beginning. The launch day arrived with a mixture of excitement and nerves. Jacob couldn't sleep the night before. He had spent the last few days fine-tuning every detail, making sure that Navi Guide would be as accessible, intuitive, and useful as possible. The last-minute testing had been a success, with users across the board praising the app's design and functionality. But now it was real. Now the world would see what they had created. Jacob sat in front of his laptop early that morning, scrolling through the final preparations. He glanced at his phone, noticing a series of messages from Sarah, Zoe, Eduardo, Sabrina, and Maya, all expressing their excitement about the day ahead. "It's happening, Jacob. We're going to change the world," Sarah had texted. He smiled, reading the message again. It had been a long journey, but they had finally made it. NaviGuide was about to launch into the world, and with it, Access Tech was taking its first steps toward revolutionizing the tech industry. Jacob looked up from his phone and saw Margaret walking into the room, her face soft with pride. "You look nervous," she said with a knowing smile. "I am," Jacob admitted. "This feels huge. It's not just about launching an app. It's about changing the way people see accessibility and technology. It's about making sure that everyone, regardless of ability, can use the tech they need to live their lives." Margaret placed a hand on his shoulder. "You've worked so hard for this, Jacob. I know it's going to be a success." He smiled, grateful for her unwavering support. "Thanks, Mom. I couldn't have done it without you." The launch went live at 10 a.m. Within minutes, the app was featured on tech blogs, social media platforms, and accessibility forums. Users flooded to download NaviGuide, and the reviews began pouring in, each one more positive than the last. People praised the app for its ease of use, its sleek design, and, most importantly, its inclusivity. For the first time, an app had been built with accessibility in mind from the very beginning, and it was making a tangible difference in people's lives. Jacob was watching the download numbers climb when he received a notification from one of their social media accounts. "NaviGuide is trending. It's everywhere," the message read. He stared at the screen, in awe. The launch had only been live for a few hours, and it was already making waves. But it wasn't just about the app itself. The conversation surrounding accessibility and technology was gaining momentum. People were talking about how companies had failed to consider accessibility, how products had been built without considering the needs of people with disabilities. This was exactly what Jacob and his team had hoped for. At the same time, Elon Musk was watching the launch unfold from his office, his phone buzzing with updates. He had been following the progress of NaviGuide closely, and the response was exactly what he had anticipated. The app wasn't just a hit, it was a statement. He tapped a message on his phone and sent it to Jacob. "Incredible work, Jacob. You and your team are leading the charge. This is just the beginning." Jacob's phone buzzed a few seconds later. It was Elon. "Thanks, Elon. It's been a crazy ride, but it's worth it. I couldn't have done it without my team and your belief in us." Elon responded almost immediately. "You're changing the world. Keep going. I'm proud of you." Jacob sat back in his chair, a sense of accomplishment washing over him. This wasn't just the success of an app. It was the first step towards something bigger. With Access Tech, they were building a foundation that would change the way tech companies thought about accessibility. They were proving that accessibility wasn't a barrier to innovation. It was the key to unlocking new possibilities. By that evening, the media coverage was growing rapidly. News outlets began running stories about the launch. "A revolutionary new app is changing the game for accessibility," one headline read. Another headline called NaviGuide, "the most inclusive navigation app ever created." Jacob couldn't believe it. This was everything they had worked for, everything they had hoped for, finally coming to life. As he sat in his office looking over the glowing reviews and the overwhelming support from users and media alike, Jacob felt like he was witnessing the future unfold before him. Then his phone buzzed again. This time it was Sarah. "We did it, Jacob. We're not just changing technology. We're changing the way people think about it." Jacob typed back, "We've only just begun." As the days passed, the buzz around NaviGuide continued to grow. The app became a staple for anyone navigating public spaces, especially for those with mobility impairments. Cities began taking notice, and soon municipalities were reaching out to Access Tech to explore partnerships that would help integrate NaviGuide into public transportation systems, shopping malls, and other public buildings. Jacob's team was overwhelmed by the response. There were moments of doubt in the early stages, moments when Jacob questioned whether they could really pull it off. But now, with each new email, call, and partnership opportunity, it was clear. They were on the verge of something monumental. The true validation came when Jacob received an email from a government official. They were working on a new initiative to improve accessibility in their city, and they wanted to partner with Access Tech to integrate NaviGuide into the project. The city planned to make their public buildings and transportation system fully accessible to everyone, regardless of ability. NaviGuide would be the cornerstone of that effort. Jacob couldn't believe what he was reading. "This is it," he whispered to himself. "This is what we've been working for." As the weeks passed, Jacob and his team worked tirelessly to expand Access Tech's offerings. NaviGuide was just the beginning. They began to explore other projects that would further their mission of inclusivity. The vision for Access Tech was becoming clearer by the day. They weren't just building products, they were changing the way the world viewed accessibility and technology. Elon continued to provide guidance, offering strategic advice and ensuring they had the resources they needed to keep growing. But Jacob knew that this was his team's moment. They were the ones driving this change. One afternoon, as Jacob sat at his desk, looking out the window at the bustling city below, his phone buzzed once more. It was a message from Elon Musk. "I'm going to be in town next week. I'd like to meet with you and your team. Let's talk about what's next." Jacob smiled. He knew what this meant. They were just getting started, and now the whole world was watching. The momentum that Jacob and his team had built with NaviGuide was undeniable. The app's success had exceeded even their wildest expectations. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and now cities, businesses, and organizations were reaching out to integrate their technology into public spaces and infrastructure. Jacob knew that this was just the beginning, but as the excitement of the launch settled, a new challenge loomed on the horizon. With success came the pressure to continue innovating, to stay ahead of the curve, to ensure that Access Tech wasn't just a one-hit wonder. Jacob could feel the weight of leadership pressing down on him, and he knew that the next steps were crucial. This was no longer just about creating a product, it was about creating a legacy. 1 week after the NaviGuide launch, Jacob received an unexpected email. The subject line simply read, "Meeting with Elon Musk." He opened it quickly, his heart racing. "Jacob," the email began, "I'll be in town next week for a major tech conference. I'd like to sit down with you and your team to discuss what comes next for Access Tech. The success of NaviGuide is impressive, but now is the time to think bigger. Let's make this company the leader in accessible technology." Jacob's mind raced. This was the moment he had been waiting for, an opportunity to sit down with Elon, to map out the future of Access Tech. They had come so far already, but this was the chance to turn their vision into a global movement. He quickly messaged the team, "Meeting with Elon next week. It's time to talk about the future. Let's prepare for this. We have to think bigger." Within minutes, his phone buzzed with responses from everyone on the team. "Let's do it," Maya wrote. "We're ready for this." Sabrina added, "This is the chance we've been waiting for. Let's go." Jacob felt a surge of excitement. He was no longer just leading a company, he was leading a movement that had the potential to change the way the world viewed accessibility, to redefine the relationship between technology and disability. The days leading up to the meeting with Elon were filled with long discussions, brainstorming sessions, and planning. Jacob and his team knew they had to be ready. This wasn't just about maintaining the momentum, they needed to push it even further. They decided that they needed to expand their focus beyond just navigation apps like NaviGuide. They had proven that accessible technology could be transformative, but they wanted to create a comprehensive ecosystem of products that would enhance the lives of people with disabilities in every aspect of their daily lives. This would mean tackling everything from communication tools to home automation, making sure that every product they developed was designed from the ground up with inclusivity in mind. "We need to make accessibility a part of everything," Jacob said during one of their late-night meetings. "We shouldn't just be an app company. We should be a company that redefines what tech means for everyone. I'm talking about accessible smart homes, communication devices, healthcare tech, everything. Accessibility can no longer be a niche. It should be the standard." Maya, who had been quiet for a while, spoke up. "What if we started designing a platform, something that connects all these products? A unified ecosystem of accessible devices that work together seamlessly. That way, we're not just providing individual tools, We're giving people the power to build their own accessible environments. Jacob nodded. I love that idea. That's the future. A truly connected, accessible world. Sabrina smiled. And we can make sure it's intuitive for everyone. We'll integrate machine learning to adapt to individual needs, and we can use data to continuously improve the experience for users. Eduardo, who had been reviewing some early design concepts, added, we need to make sure it's scalable. We want to reach millions, if not billions, of users. But we also want to make sure that every new product we release is just as easy to use as NaviGuide. Jacob paused, taking in their ideas. It was ambitious, but it was exactly what Access Tech needed. This was the next step. This was how they could truly change the game. All right, let's prepare a pitch for Elon. Let's show him that we're not just a flash in the pan. We're here to stay, and we're here to lead the way. When the day of the meeting finally arrived, Jacob and his team found themselves in a conference room in a sleek, modern building, just a few blocks from the tech conference that Elon was attending. The room was filled with anticipation. Jacob, Sabrina, Maya, and Eduardo sat around the table, their laptops open, their notes in front of them, ready to present their vision to Elon. At 10 a.m. sharp, Elon Musk walked into the room. He was dressed casually in a black hoodie and jeans, his characteristic calm and focus immediately apparent. The room fell silent as he sat down, his eyes scanning the team before locking onto Jacob. Good to see you all, Elon said, his voice friendly but direct. I've been following everything you've been doing. The launch of NaviGuide was just the beginning. I want to hear your ideas for what comes next. Jacob took a deep breath. This was the moment. Thank you for meeting with us, Elon. We've been thinking a lot about the future. NaviGuide was a huge success, but we know we can do more. We're not just a company that creates apps. We're a company that wants to redefine what accessibility means for the world. Elon leaned forward, his interest piqued. Go on, Jacob smiled. We want to build an ecosystem, a platform that integrates all of the accessible technology we've developed and more. We're talking about accessible smart homes, healthcare tech, communication devices, anything that people with disabilities need to navigate the world around them. We want to make accessibility the default, and not just for people with disabilities. We want to build technology that works for everyone. The room was silent for a moment, and Jacob could feel the weight of Elon's gaze. Then Elon spoke. That's ambitious, but it's exactly what the world needs. The problem with the tech industry is that accessibility has always been an afterthought. You're proposing something that's not just practical, it's visionary. You want to make accessibility the standard. I like that. Jacob felt a sense of relief wash over him. Elon Musk's approval meant everything, but there was still more to discuss. We believe that this ecosystem needs to be flexible, Jacob continued. We want people to be able to build their own accessible environments. We'll integrate machine learning and AI to make sure that the system adapts to each individual's needs. And we'll continue to innovate, pushing the boundaries of what accessible technology can do. Elon nodded thoughtfully. I see where you're going with this. I think you're on the right path. This could be a game changer, not just for people with disabilities, but for the entire tech industry. It's a huge leap forward. Jacob's heart was racing, but he kept his focus. We're ready to move forward. We've built the foundation. We just need the resources to make it happen. Elon stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the city. After a long pause, he turned back to the team. I'll give you everything you need. Let's make this happen. You're not just building products, you're building the future. Jacob felt a surge of excitement and gratitude. This was more than just a meeting. It was a turning point. Access Tech was going to change the world. The meeting with Elon Musk had been everything Jacob had hoped for, and more. Elon's confidence in Access Tech and its mission was exactly the push they needed to take the next giant step forward. The vision for an ecosystem of accessible technology wasn't just a pipe dream anymore. It was a real, tangible goal. Elon had given them the green light, and now it was time to build. Jacob stood in the office the next morning, looking out the window at the city below. The weight of the responsibility was heavy, but for the first time, it felt like they were truly on the verge of something monumental. They were going to change the world. They were going to redefine what it meant for technology to be inclusive. His phone buzzed with a message from Elon. I've arranged for the funding and resources you need. Let's make this vision a reality. We'll talk soon." Jacob's heart raced. This was the moment they had worked so hard for, the opportunity to turn their passion into something that would make a real difference. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. Elon's financial backing and support provided the foundation they needed to bring their ideas to life. The team expanded, bringing in more engineers, designers, and experts in accessibility. Jacob, along with Maya, Sabrina, Eduardo, and Zoe, worked tirelessly to develop the platform, a seamless, interconnected ecosystem that would allow users to build their own accessible environments. The platform was designed to be flexible and intuitive, using AI and machine learning to adapt to individual needs. Whether it was controlling a smart home, using communication tools, or navigating public spaces, the technology would work for everyone. They were designing not just products, but an entire experience, an ecosystem that would integrate into the everyday lives of people with disabilities. Jacob knew this was a game changer. This was the future of technology. But there were still obstacles ahead, logistical, technical, and financial hurdles that would challenge the team at every turn. Yet with each passing day, Jacob's belief in their vision grew stronger. He knew they could overcome anything if they stayed true to their mission. A few months later, as the project began to take shape, Access Tech hosted its first public demo. It was a grand event, held in a state-of-the-art conference center where the world would get its first look at their revolutionary platform. Jacob paced backstage, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. His team was ready, and the platform was ready. They had worked long hours, poured their hearts into this moment. Now it was time to show the world what they had created. The room was packed with journalists, investors, and industry leaders, all eager to see the future of accessible technology. Jacob could feel the buzz in the air as he walked to the stage, where Maya, Sabrina, Eduardo, and Zoe were already set up, their laptops and devices ready for the demonstration. He took a deep breath as he approached the microphone. The audience fell silent, awaiting the presentation. "Good afternoon, everyone," Jacob began, his voice steady, though his heart was racing. "Thank you for being here today. We're about to show you something that's going to change the way you think about accessibility. But more than that, it's going to change the way the world interacts with technology." He paused for a moment, letting the words sink in. Access Tech is not just about building products, it's about creating an inclusive ecosystem that empowers everyone, regardless of ability. And today, we're proud to introduce the future of accessibility. He motioned to the screen behind him, where the Access Tech platform appeared. The interface was sleek, intuitive, and completely customizable. As Jacob spoke, Sabrina began navigating the platform on stage, showing the audience how users could seamlessly control their smart homes, communicate through accessible devices, and receive real-time feedback from the platform. "This is just the beginning," Jacob continued. "Navi Guide was our first step, but now we're creating a complete ecosystem where accessibility is built in from the ground up. Our platform uses AI to adapt to each individual's needs, and it's designed to be as flexible and intuitive as possible." The crowd watched in awe as Maya demonstrated how the platform's machine learning algorithms learned a user's preferences over time, adjusting settings and functions to make life easier. Eduardo showed how the platform could integrate with other devices, creating a fully connected home environment. Zoe, who had been instrumental in the platform's design, walked the audience through how it could be customized for different disabilities. Everything from vision and hearing impairments to mobility challenges. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Journalists tweeted about the demonstration, calling it a breakthrough for accessibility. Investors in the audience began discussing partnerships. The message was clear. Access Tech wasn't just a company, it was the future of inclusive technology. After the demo, Jacob and his team stood together in the backstage area, overwhelmed by the positive response. They had done it. They had proven that accessibility wasn't just a niche market, it was the key to unlocking a new era of technology. As the evening wore on, Jacob found himself talking to several investors, all eager to get on board with Access Tech. It was a pivotal moment. The platform they had created was something the world had been waiting for, and now they had the opportunity to scale it. Jacob felt the weight of the responsibility, but he also knew that they were on the verge of something extraordinary. Later that evening, as Jacob sat in his hotel room, his phone buzzed. It was another message from Elon. "I'm proud of you, Jacob. What you and your team have created is more than just technology. It's a movement. We've only just begun. Let's keep going." Jacob smiled as he read the message. He had come so far, and yet the journey was just beginning. Access Tech was going to change the world, and Jacob knew that he and his team were ready for whatever came next. The next few months were a whirlwind of growth and expansion. Access Tech's platform was adopted by major corporations, government agencies, and nonprofit organizations, all eager to incorporate the new ecosystem into their services. Cities began implementing Navi Guide and the Access Tech platform into their public buildings and transportation systems, making their cities more inclusive for everyone. Jacob continued to lead the company with the same passion and commitment that had driven him from the start. The team expanded, and new ideas flowed in from every direction. They were no longer just a startup. They were a movement, a catalyst for change in the technology industry. But the road ahead wasn't without its challenges. Competitors began to take notice of Access Tech's success, and some tried to mimic their approach. There were tough decisions to be made, from navigating the complexities of scaling the business to managing the growing demands of their customers. But with each challenge, Jacob and his team only grew stronger, more determined to stay true to their mission of making the world more accessible for all. As the years passed, Access Tech's impact grew. The platform became a standard for accessible technology, and Jacob found himself at the forefront of a new wave of innovation. But through it all, he never forgot the lessons he had learned along the way. That it wasn't just about the technology, it was about the people it was created for. And as long as they stayed true to that mission, they could achieve anything. The years that followed Access Tech's public launch were nothing short of revolutionary. The ecosystem Jacob and his team had built expanded exponentially, transforming the tech industry's approach to accessibility. What had started as a small project with big ideas had turned into a global movement, with Access Tech at the helm of a new era of technology. Jacob stood at the front of a packed conference hall, addressing a crowd of thousands at one of the largest technology expos in the world. The banners behind him displayed the Access Tech logo, now known worldwide as the leader in inclusive and accessible technology. "We're here today not just to showcase the latest in accessible technology," Jacob said, his voice steady but filled with passion, "but to remind the world that innovation should never leave anyone behind. Technology is at its best when it's made for everyone, regardless of ability. And that's what Access Tech is here to prove. Inclusivity isn't just an option, it's the future." The crowd erupted into applause. Jacob's eyes scanned the room, and for a moment he reflected on how far they had come. The early days, when he had been let go from Concord Technologies, uncertain of his future, unsure how he could continue to provide for his mother, felt like a distant memory. Now Access Tech was a global leader, and their mission had never been clearer. Backstage, Jacob's team was waiting for him. Maya, Sabrina, Eduardo, and Zoe were there, all smiling, their pride in their work shining through. They had become more than just colleagues. They were a family, bound by a shared purpose to create something that would leave a lasting impact. "Nice speech, boss," Zoe said, her usual bright smile lighting up the room. Jacob grinned. "Thanks, Zoe. Couldn't have done it without all of you." Sabrina stepped forward, her expression thoughtful. "You know, Jacob, when we first started this, we didn't know how it would all come together. But we did it. We've made the world a more accessible place. We've made history." Jacob's heart swelled with gratitude. "We've done this together, and we're going to keep doing it. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning." As Access Tech continued to grow, Jacob remained deeply committed to the company's original vision. They had made waves with their initial products, but Jacob knew that they couldn't stop there. The platform that had started with Navi Guide now included smart homes, health tech, transportation solutions, and communication tools, all designed with inclusivity as the foundation. But there was more to be done. With the success of their ecosystem, Access Tech had become a key player in shaping the future of inclusive design. Jacob worked tirelessly, not just to lead Access Tech, but to educate the next generation of innovators. The company began offering scholarships and internships to people with disabilities, encouraging them to pursue careers in tech, engineering, design, and entrepreneurship. Jacob knew that by providing opportunities to others, they could continue to build on the foundation Access Tech had laid. "I want every person who's ever been told they don't belong in tech to know that they do," Jacob said during one of the many interviews he gave over the years. Access Tech was built by people who understand the challenges firsthand, and we're going to make sure the industry knows that talent comes in many forms. Meanwhile, Elon Musk remained a key supporter and mentor to Jacob, offering guidance when needed, but stepping back to allow Access Tech to flourish on its own. The two of them spoke often about the future, their conversations filled with ideas for even greater innovations. "Jacob, you've built something remarkable," Elon said during one of their catch-up calls. "I always knew you had it in you. You didn't just create a company, you created a movement, and movements last." Jacob nodded, humbled by Elon's words. "Thanks, Elon. I couldn't have done it without your belief in us. You saw something in us from the start. I'll always be grateful for that." Elon smiled on the other end of the line. "Keep pushing forward. The world is just beginning to understand what's possible when you think inclusively. You're showing them the way." As Access Tech grew, Jacob never lost sight of his original mission. He worked closely with the team to continue pushing the boundaries of what was possible. They developed new tools and products, refined their platform, and integrated feedback from the community. They built partnerships with governments, nonprofits, and corporations to ensure that accessibility was no longer a luxury, it was a necessity. Years passed, and the tech world began to shift. More companies started to adopt inclusive design principles. The conversation around accessibility in tech grew louder, and companies that had once ignored it were now scrambling to catch up. But Jacob knew that Access Tech wasn't just about meeting a market demand. It was about making the world a better place for everyone. And in that mission, they would never stop innovating. One evening, after a particularly grueling week of meetings and product launches, Jacob found himself back at his apartment, sitting at the kitchen table with Margaret. She had always been his biggest supporter, the one who had believed in him when no one else did. And now, seeing the man he had become, Jacob could see the pride in her eyes. "I'm so proud of you, Jacob," she said, her voice full of emotion. "You've done more than just build a company. You've changed lives, and you're helping people who needed someone to believe in them." Jacob reached over and took his mother's hand. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mom. You've always been there for me, and now we're here, together. We've made something that will last." Margaret smiled softly, her eyes glistening with tears. "You've always had the heart for this, Jacob. You were meant to do this. You've always been about helping people." Jacob squeezed her hand, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "This is just the beginning, Mom. We've got so much more to do." As the years passed, Access Tech's influence continued to grow, reshaping the tech industry and proving that inclusivity and innovation went hand in hand. Jacob never stopped pushing forward, driven by the same passion that had fueled him from the very start. And when he looked out at the world, at the community they had built, the lives they had touched, Jacob knew that their work was far from over. There would always be more to do, more lives to impact, more technology to create. But for now, Jacob was content. He had built a company that not only changed the way the world saw technology, but one that changed the way the world saw people. And that, he knew, was the true measure of success. Access Tech became a symbol of what was possible when innovation and inclusion went hand in hand. Over the years, Jacob and his team continued to lead the charge for accessible technology, always staying true to their mission. They empowered millions of people to live fuller, more independent lives, and their work was recognized globally. But perhaps the greatest success of all was the lasting impact they had on the world's understanding of accessibility. What had once been seen as a niche market had become a fundamental part of the tech industry, and Jacob knew that their work would continue to inspire generations of innovators to come.